All right, I'm going to read the Breadwinner pages 15 through 19, the first half of chapter 1. Please follow along in your Breadwinner book as I read aloud. You should not just be listening, you should also be reading, okay? Chapter 1. I can read that letter as well as Father can, whispered Parvana into the folds of her chador. Well, almost. She didn't dare say those words out loud. The man sitting beside her father would not want to hear her voice, nor would anyone else in the Kabul market. Parvana was there only to help her father walk to the market and back home again after work. She sat well back on the blanket, her head and most of her face covered by her chador. She wasn't really supposed to be outside at all. The Taliban had ordered all the girls and women in Afghanistan to stay inside their homes. They even forbade girls to go to school. Parvana had to leave her 6th grade class, and her sister, Noria, was not allowed to go to her high school. Their mother had been kicked out of her job as a writer for the Kabul radio station. For more than a year now, they had all been stuck inside one room, along with 5-year-old Maryam and 2-year-old Ali. Parvana did get out a few hours most days to help her father walk. She was always glad to go outside, even though it meant sitting for hours on a blanket spread over the hard ground of the marketplace. At least it was something to do. She had even got used to holding her tongue and hiding her face. She was small for her 11 years. As a small girl, she could usually get away with being outside without being questioned. I need this girl to help me walk, her father would tell any Talib who asked, pointing to his leg. He had lost the lower part of his leg when the high school he was teaching in was bombed. His insides had been hurt somehow too. He was often tired. I have no son at home except for an infant, he would explain. Parvana would slump down further on the blanket and try to make herself look smaller. She was afraid to look up at the soldiers. She had seen what they had did, especially to women, the way they would whip and beat someone they thought should be punished. Sitting in the marketplace day after day, she had seen a lot. When the Taliban were around, what she wanted most of all was to be invisible. Now the customer asked her father to read his letter again. Read it slowly so that I can remember it for my family. Parvana would have liked to get a letter. Mail delivery had recently started again in Afghanistan after years of being disrupted by war. Many of her friends had fled the country with their families. She thought they were in Pakistan, but she wasn't sure, so she couldn't write to them. Her own family had moved so often because of the bombing that her friends no longer knew where she was. Afghans cover the earth like stars cover the sky, her father often said. Her father finished reading the man's letter a second time. The customer thanked him and paid. I will look for you when it comes time to write a reply. Most people in Afghanistan could not read or write. Parvana was one of the lucky ones. Both of her parents had been to university, and they believed in education for everyone, even girls. Customers came and went as the afternoon wore on. Most spoke Dari, the same language Parvana spoke best. When a customer spoke Pashtun, she could recognize most of it, but not all. Her parents could speak English too. Her father had gone to university in England. That was a long time ago. The market was a very busy place. Men shopped for their families, and peddlers hawked their goods and services. Some, like the tea shop, had their own stalls. With such a big urn and so many trays of cups, it was hard to stay in one place. Tea boys ran back and forth into the labyrinth of the marketplace, carrying tea to customers who couldn't leave their own shops, then running back again with empty cups. I could do that, Parvana whispered. She'd like to be able to run around the market, to know its winding streets as well as she knew the 4 walls of her home. Her father turned to look at her. "I'd rather see you running around a schoolyard." He turned around again to call out to the passing men, "Anything written, anything read, Pashtun and Dari, wonderful items for sale." Parvana frowned. It wasn't her fault she wasn't in school. She would rather be there too, instead of sitting on this uncomfortable blanket, her back and bottom getting sore. She missed her friends, her blue and white school uniform, and doing new things each day. History was her favorite subject, especially Afghan history. Everybody had come to Afghanistan. The Persians came 4,000 years ago. Alexander the Great came too, followed by the Greeks, Arabs, Turks, British, and finally the Soviets. One of the conquistadors, Tamerlane from Samarkand, cut off the heads of his enemies and stacked them in huge piles, like melons at a fruit stand. All these people had come to Parvana's beautiful country to try to take it over, and the Afghans had kicked them all out again. But now the country was ruled by the Taliban militia. They were Afghans, and they had very definite ideas about how things should run. When they first took over the capital city of Kabul and forbade girls to go to school, Parvana wasn't terribly unhappy. She had a test coming up in our arithmetic that she hadn't prepared for, and she was in trouble for talking in class again. The teacher was going to send a note to her mother, but the Taliban took over first. "What are you crying for?" she asked Noria, who couldn't stop sobbing. "I think a holiday is very nice." Parvana was sure that the Taliban would let them go back to school in a few days. By then, her teacher would have forgotten all about sending a tattletale note to her mother. "You're just stupid," Noria screamed at her. "Leave me alone." One of the difficulties of living with your whole family in one room was that it was impossible to really leave anyone alone. Wherever Noria went, there was Parvana, and wherever Parvana went, there was Noria. Both of Parvana's parents had come from old, respected Afghan families. With their education, they had earned high salaries. They had a big house with a courtyard, a couple of servants, a television set, a refrigerator, a car. Noria had even had her own room. Parvana had shared a room with her little sister, Mariam. Mariam chattered a lot, but she thought Parvana was wonderful. It had certainly been wonderful to get away from Noria sometimes. Okay, so we're going to stop there.